Zach, we are back with a special edition of Moves to Make, diving into the free agency moves that have been made so far. And we are diving into some buy, sell, hold, avoid scenarios, talking about some new landing spots, some re-ups, a whole bunch of players we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be a lot. Hope y'all are ready. Hope y'all are tuning in. If you enjoy the episode, please leave a like. Comment down below what you think of some of these free agent signings. Please note that some of these have not, there's probably still news to be had, so you might be watching this after some news is broke. These are purely talking about guys that we know the deals of, we know the situations of at this moment in time. So I apologize if there's more news that comes out. Drop questions in the comments on any of those. But with that said, if you want to be really on the up with all of the free agency discussions, head on over to patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get in the Discord server where it was absolutely ballistic today. We had one patron who popped out for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and there was 722 messages to come back to. Shout out boss. Shout out boss Hoss Ross out there who had the trouble with all the Discord notifications. But hey, we are alive and well in that Discord, and the free agency was a testament to that. But speaking of which, let's get right into it. We are starting off hot, Zach, with this running back class. That is, we were kind of hesitant with a lot of these running backs, and I think we can both agree that the lack of awesomeness that is in the rookie running back class has led to the have made these free agent running backs benefactors to that case and the increased salary cap. But either which way, we got some running backs in new situations. The first one I want to start off with, Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles, 3 years, $37.75 million coming his way. And I just want to run through some trades I found today on fantasycalc.com trades database. Typing in Saquon Barkley, saw him go for a first-round pick in Superflex, a first-round pick in a one-quarterback, and even Chris Olave in a Superflex league. So Saquon's being pretty highly valued right now. Zach, I want to know, are you buying, selling, holding, avoiding? Tell me why. Are those prices you're looking to pay? Has the price of brick gone up with Saquon Barkley? Tell me about it.
How do you not like this signing? And I understand there's like, Hurts is going to take away touchdowns. I get that. But Saquon Barkley is better than DeAndre Swift. I know that he missed time with the ACL injury, but I mean, last year he was pretty durable on a very bad team with a very bad offensive line, with very bad quarterback play, where teams just had to stack 8 or 9 in the box to try and stop Saquon Barkley and make Tommy DeVito or whoever the hell was the quarterback beat them. I like this, man. I really like this. And I know, again, another caveat is that Jason Kelce will not be there next year, which I don't know how much that changes things, right? But it's just, on paper, it checks all the boxes for me. I really like this. I like the investment that the Eagles have made, not only with the years, but the dollar amount, the offensive line that he's going to be playing for, as opposed to the offensive line that he's been playing for. The quarterback that he has there that will take a little bit of pressure off of him that he's never played with before. I like this a lot. And I haven't seen situations where you have to, you mentioned there are some first-round picks. We don't know the context of those first-round picks. Are they 106? Are they 110? From what I'm seeing, and I have been reaching out to Saquon Barkley, I don't have any Saquon Barkley shares in my 30 leagues. And I'm trying today. I am trying today. And so I will say that I think that these first-round picks that you're mentioning, I think they're fair as long as they're not in the first half of the first round. I don't even know if I feel comfortable with anything more than like 109, 110, just because he is, 26, 27 years old.
27.
But man, I just like this on paper. And I don't always want to be guarded and uber safe with running backs. This just feels right. So I don't want to ramble too much. I don't want to keep you from getting your opinion in, Bob. But to me, this feels right. This feels like a good time to buy Saquon Barkley. And from the sense that I've gotten from the few owners I've spoken to, is that there are realistic deals to be made. I haven't had anyone asking for too much, where I just closed the message box. I told you before we got on the air about some conversations I've had. I've just closed the box. I haven't had that yet with any Saquon Barkley owners. So I don't know. This feels right. This feels like a good time to buy. This feels like he has some safety and security, at least for the next 2 years. I look at a 3-year contract as a 2-year contract. So I feel good about buying Saquon Barkley for the next 2 years, Bob.
Yeah, I'm very much in on this as well, especially if I'm a competitive team, obviously from rebuilding, not really looking at running backs at this point, at least not of this caliber. But I like the cost. I think you are pretty right on with the late-ish first, that 108, 109 range maybe. I think you probably have to add a little bit on top of that if that's your lead pick that you're going in with, whatever the case may be. But definitely in on this. You also have to consider they have Kellen Moore there, who's a much better offensive coordinator than they had last year. So that's an easy upgrade at the offensive coordinator position. So with any luck, this offense gets a little more humming. You have to downgrade at least that center spot with Jason Kelce leaving. I know they have like a if so facto replacement in mind that Jason Kelce kind of got to handpick and train up and take under his wing and whatnot, but it's still going to be a downgrade. Does that take away from what they can do with a tush push? Does it make it so they have to lean on the running back a little bit more in goal line situations? It's possible. I don't know. I like to think that Kelce was also a lot of what made that brotherly shove, I should say, work. Things to think about. I love it. I'm buying as well for that late first, probably plus a little bit that you need to throw on there to get it done. Maybe a 25 second. So you don't stack picks in the same year. Maybe you're sending a 24 second and a 25 first. Maybe that's something that other team would prefer. But with that said, let's roll right on in to this next one. My Green Bay Packers went out and grabbed Josh Jacobs on a 4-year deal worth $48 million. And I was honestly pretty excited about this deal. I kind of thought that this was more of the A.J. Dillon replacement than seemingly at this point the entire backfield replacement, because right after they dropped the news that they signed Josh Jacobs, they dropped the news that they're cutting Aaron Jones. Now it seems like it's Josh Jacobs' backfield. I like to think they're going to bring somebody in. Some possible costs, recent trades for Josh Jacobs. 24 first. Saw this 5 times for Superflex, moving a 24 first for Josh Jacobs or Josh Jacobs for a 24 first. Again, we don't know the exact context of where that pick is. I'm assuming that it is somewhere in that late range again. I find it hard to believe that there's 106s, 105s being tossed out for Josh Jacobs singularly. There we go, words. And I saw this deal once in a 1 quarterback. I could see a mid first in a 1 quarterback for Josh Jacobs, still a relatively young running back. I believe 24, 25 years old, but there's a lot of mileage on Josh Jacobs, and that's something you have to take into consideration. Per at Noah More Parties on Twitter /X. I saw this on a couple places too. I don't know who posted it first, but this is the one I saw and the one I recorded. So I apologize if there's somebody else out there that posted it. But among 49 running backs with 100 plus attempts in 2023, 44th in yards per carry, while Zamir White was 20th, 34th in success rate, while Zamir White was 11th, 47th in yards after contact per attempt, while Zamir White was 10th, 45th in missed tackles forced per attempt, while Zamir White was 36th. Not great, but still better. 49th in explosive run rate, while Zamir White was 40th. Still great, but better. It's still not great, but better. 45th in team relative yards per carry, while Zamir White was 15th. So not a good year for 2023. We were former contributor of ours, Brandon, at Deep Dive Fantasy Football. Check him out. Did note that running backs coming off of 300 touch seasons usually don't do well, so that could be part of it. Could be kind of worn down from the previous season. We also know that team was not great last year. That is another thing to consider. There was not a lot of much of a passing threat for most of the season. Obviously, also missed some time, was banged up a little bit towards the end of the year, missed a lot of time down the stretch. That didn't really play too much of a role for him, I think, in these analytics, though. But, Zach, I want to know from you, before I get to it, being the biased Packer fan that I am, what are you doing with Josh Jacobs? What are your thoughts? Buy, sell, hold, or avoid? What do you got for me?
So I hear the stats you're saying, and it's to me, this is one of the more annoying parts of the industry, right? Is that we look at everything in a vacuum, and we don't provide context to a lot of the situations. I'll just say this real quick. It has nothing to do with Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley, but give you a good example of what I'm talking about. Jackson Smith and Njigba. Nobody's providing context to Jackson Smith and Njigba right now. They're saying, oh, he didn't score the threshold rookie points last year. So what? He had 2 Pro Bowl wide receivers in front of him. Did you really expect him to score points last year? That's a much deeper conversation we can get into, Bob. And I don't want to do it because I've been told I ramble sometimes. Nonetheless, there's not a lot of context provided to these statistics, right? Let me just give you a defensive game plan real quick. Oh, Zamir White's in the game. Let Zamir White beat me. I'm going to go back here and drop 2 or 3 safeties in case Devontae Adams runs by me. When Josh Jacobs is in the backfield, I'm going to put another safety in the box and try and stop the run. That's all the context I need for that situation. So I don't care about these Zamir White, Josh Jacobs stats. Like, are we seriously saying right now that Zamir White is better than Josh Jacobs? Is that what we're doing as a community? Because I think it's a little bit ridiculous. And if that's true, if that is what we're saying today, then why haven't we been buying Zamir White at exorbitantly expensive prices the last few months? If all these statistics want to come out today about how much better Zamir White was, why aren't we buying him when he's been at this doorstep of having opportunity for 2 or 3 months now? We're not, because we're not that obtuse as a community. So I do like the Josh Jacobs signing. I talked to you about this again before we got on the show. A lot of us talking because it's been such a fun day, right? I like this, man. I think this Green, like, you can attest to this more than me. I like the Packers offensive line. I like the Packers offense. Like, look at how they came into form in the second half of the season. And look at where it came from, too. The first half of the season, they were abysmal. The Packers were awful. They were looking at a top 10 pick. We were talking about the Green Bay Packers potentially having a top 5 pick in the NFL draft somewhere around week 8. And they made the playoffs and they won a playoff game. So I like what Josh Jacobs does to this offense. I like how he fits in that offense. I will say this. Don't buy Josh Jacobs expecting him to be the Oakland or the Las Vegas Raiders version of Josh Jacobs. I think there's somebody else there taking a little bit of work away from him. I do think that they bring someone else in the draft. Maybe they bring in another free agent. Maybe they bring A.J. Dillon back. I don't know. Apparently they like this kid, Emmanuel Wilson, too, right? You can attest to that more than me. I like this fit because there are so many weapons on that team that you have to pay attention to as a defense, plus Jordan Love. Do you think anybody was scared of Aiden O'Connell or Jimmy Garoppolo last year? No, but Jordan Love was a dynamic quarterback that can make plays last year, and you have to respect that as defense, and that just makes Josh Jacobs better. So I like this fit. I listen to what the teams tell me. And again, I'm talking to you as somebody who was burned as a Miles Sanders owner last year when the team told me I'm investing in this running back for 4 years. So I just like this. I like Saquon Barkley. I like Josh Jacobs. And I like the prices that you're able to buy because I don't think it's too expensive. And I think it's just a 2 to 3 year thing at max. Like, that's the most important thing with these running backs is managing expectations, Bob, making sure that you're buying for about a 2-year period and that you're okay with that.
I think, to fight fire with fire when we talk advanced analytics, you look at Josh Jacobs, average 7.2 defenders in the box per every time he touched the ball for a carry. That was number 1, the most defenders in the box average for any running back per player profiler. And you look at his stacked front carry percentage, number 4, facing a stacked front 35.2% of the time. And then you compare that to Zamir White, who averaged significantly less defenders in the box and was 25th most. So still a good amount, still in the top 36 running backs, still in the top 32 starters, I guess you could say. And stacked carry front, though, was only 14% of the time compared to 35% of the time and was 40th. So that alone right there, fighting fire with fire, puts a little more context on that situation. I am still hesitant to buy in. He's more of an avoid than a buy for me. I don't hate the cost, and I'm not necessarily selling unless somebody's coming to me with like a first plus. But overall, I think I am leaning towards an avoid, and that's just, or a hold if I have them even. But I think the only thing I'm not really in on personally is buying. But if I see a trade go down in a league that's a late first, maybe a third on top or a future season, I'm not going to go scoff the trade or burn the guy and be like, oh, why did you spend so much for Josh Jacobs in the comments? Because A, that's not how I roll. And B, I don't hate the deal. I don't hate the concept. And again, this is maybe me being a pessimistic Packers fan that I am. A little hesitant to buy in on that fact too. So I'm a little biased in a negative way, as opposed to trying to ram the new Packer, Josh Jacobs, which I'm excited about overall, down your throat. But speaking of which, let's move right along. Let's talk Tony Pollard, Zach, one of your favorite running backs ever. Going to the Titans on a 3-year deal worth $24 million, looking at some possible Possible cost, recent trades per fantasycalc.com trade database. Check it out if you haven't already. I saw Tony Pollard for a 24 third, or I'm sorry, Tony Pollard for a 24 second 3 times, Amari Cooper and Kendre Miller. And this was all today. All of these trades are trades that I pulled today. I can't tell you if they were before or after the news, the signings, but either which way, they were all from today. The big question I have with this one is, how does Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears work? Zach, are you buying, selling, holding, avoiding? Do you like these costs? Do you think you have to pay a little bit more for Tony Pollard at this point? Do you think you got to throw maybe a couple seconds at this deal? Maybe Kendre Miller and a third, something along those lines. Maybe Amari Cooper is pretty fair. But what do you think about this one? Buying, selling, holding, avoiding. What do you think for Tony Pollard?
You know, Bob, as I'm getting prepared to talk, I see that I feel a little angry inside. And again, this is something I talked to you about before we started the show. I don't know. I'm just sometimes the overreaction by the community really bothers me because we've been doing this now. I think you and I have been doing this for over 2 years now, and I get it. There are ebbs and flows to this, but today it's swinging so much in one direction. And Tony Pollard has been somebody that we even on this channel we've said like sell, sell, sell. Dude broke his ankle in the playoffs. So in January, he broke his ankle. And at the end of last season, from I think it was weeks 11 throughout the rest of the regular season, he was the highest rated running back according to PFF in terms of their grades. Now that's not how just he runs the ball. That's how he catches the ball. He pass protects, all that kind of good stuff. And so I think our reaction to Tony Pollard becoming a free agency was a bit much. Now I'm not buying Tony Pollard. I'm not going out there and buying Tony Pollard. But I'm not panicked. I have him in our Rewinders League, and I've posted him on the trade block every so often, and nobody sent me anything close to what he should be worth. And so I'm not panic selling. I'm not a believer in that. Like, we could get into this about Justin Fields. I'm not panic selling Justin Fields. So he'll be a starter eventually. Dude almost broke the rushing record 2 years ago. So I maybe would buy, given the right context. I'm definitely looking to buy if I'm a Tyjae Spears owner. Or if I'm a Tony Pollard, I'm looking like vice versa. I want that backfield. Not because I can play both, but because I think there's some security in having both, where if one of them goes down, the other one's in for a big payday in terms of their workload on a certain week. But this is not somebody I think this is a hold for me. If I'm answering that question, honestly, I'm holding Tony Pollard. I'm very happy to have a running back on a 3-year contract. Again, I look at that as a 2-year contract. That's some security for me in a position that's been so volatile the last few years. To have a running back that I can feel secure about for more than 1 year. Do I feel great about it? No, but I like the system that he's in. I'm probably a more pro Titans person than a lot of other people are. I've been pro Will Levis. I've been pro Tyjae Spears. And, I'm not going to say I'm pro Tony Pollard, but where the community has been, you could consider me pro Tony Pollard because I think we've been so low on him unnecessarily because, I don't know, the community maybe has PTSD of being burned from running backs from 1 year to another. Having James Robinson be a crazy top 10 running back and then being out of the league. But, I think when you look at the context of Tony Pollard, there were several teams interested in Tony Pollard. The Cowboys wanted to bring him back. He got a 3-year, $24 million deal. I just feel there's some safety and security in that. Now, look, that could be Miles Sanders next year. No idea. I think that's somebody else. We'll probably talk about that pretty soon. But I'm probably holding Tony Pollard if I have. I'm not selling a running back that I think is probably going to get more going to get that workload that he had in Dallas before last year. A little bit more similar, 10, 12, 15 carries a game, and be more efficient with that. Another year removed from the ankle injury that probably hurt him a good amount the beginning of last year.
I tend to lean towards the hold as well. I think that just kind of makes the most sense. I don't think you're selling him for great value. I don't know if what you probably have to pay for him really equates to the production you might get. I think there's upside, but I think he's kind of going to be, capped by the offense that he's in. If that offense sputters at all, if it's not a great offense, you have a running back that's splitting work in an offense that isn't great. That's kind of like an RB2 recipe in the making. And, for what I'm having to pay for that, maybe it makes sense if I have a bunch of picks. I think his value is okay. but not great. I like the concept of trying to pair the two, to just kind of have maybe whichever one comes out the better asset out of this deal. If there is one, I don't know. This is a hold for me if I have them. Probably an avoid if I don't. I'm not really super looking to go get them if I don't have Tyjae Spears. I'm kind of happy being late to the party on this one if I have to be, as opposed to buying in now. Although, like I said, I don't think the price is terrible. I think you're probably paying more than a second at this point, probably an early second, probably a little bit on top of that, to get Tony Pollard on your roster. But yeah, I'll stick with him on my team if I got him, because unless I really feel pressure to move him for any rebuilding reasons, then maybe I'll move him. But other than that, I'm happy holding, because I don't think you're getting anything great selling him. So let's move on to another running back here. Another interesting landing spot. DeAndre Swift going back to the NFC North, this time with the Bears on a 3-year deal worth $24 million. Possible cost, recent trades for DeAndre Swift for late first or early seconds. And I'm assuming the late first and early second, because I saw a lot of deals that were first and a lot of deals that were seconds. So I'm kind of pegging him in that range. And I got to ask with DeAndre Swift, what are we thinking about, not only because a lot of these spots, there's not really a lot of other competition outside of Tony Pollard going to that team. But DeAndre Swift, kicking Khalil Herbert to the curb, ? Kicking Roschon Johnson to the curb, ? I think, if anything, DeAndre Swift probably kicks Khalil Herbert to the curb more than Roschon Johnson. I think Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift can kind of complement each other a little bit more. But, Zach, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What are you thinking for this one? Buy, sell, hold, avoid. Prices you're willing to pay if you're buying, or what you're looking to get if you're selling, or if you're avoiding, why. Tell me all about it.
I will admit I have 0 DeAndre Swift shares, and I probably will continue to have 0 DeAndre Swift shares. I don't want to say avoid. I'm definitely not buying. I need to see more about what this team does on the offensive line first, before I commit to a DeAndre Swift. And even then, I'm probably not going to want to pay the price it's going to take, because DeAndre Swift has that Drake London aspect to him where, like, DeAndre Swift lovers love DeAndre Swift, and there's still that sentiment from 2-3 years ago when he was going in the top 2-3 rounds of a startup where people just don't want to let that go. And I get it. You saw some glimpses of it last year, but how is DeAndre Swift not 2024 Miles Sanders? By the way, can you tell I have Miles Sanders PTSD? Because I keep bringing him up. I'm hurt. A lot of similarities, right? First of all, very similar deal. I think Miles Sanders got 4 for 26. This is 3 for 24. Very similar, right? Going to a team that's going to have the first overall pick in the draft, needs to give the quarterback weapons, leaves a very good offensive line to go to a very suspect offensive line. And that, to me, is the biggest one here, where I go, what did I learn from the Miles Sanders experience? It wasn't all Miles Sanders in Philadelphia. It was very clearly that offense, the offensive line, having Jalen Hurts take some pressure off. And, does Caleb Williams do that to DeAndre Swift? I don't know. I mean, we all thought Bryce Young was the hottest thing since sliced bread. And look, it was actually C.J. Stroud. So we're bound to be wrong on some of these guys. All I'm saying is, if there was one running back I had to pick to not fulfill their duties to the amount of money they were given, it would be DeAndre Swift. Because, like you said, there's a lot of competition there. This is not a very good offensive line. Now, look, maybe they bring in Caleb Williams and Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze, and this completely changes everything, because you've got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Cole Kmet running down the field, which, secondaries better pay attention to that. Maybe that does open things up for DeAndre Swift. I'm not a DeAndre Swift guy. I'm not a believer. And I think the success that he had last year was more so because of the offensive line that he was afforded more than it was DeAndre Swift. Probably a little combination of the two, but I'm going to give more credit to the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. People don't like to give offensive lines credit. They're like referees. When you do a good job, nobody talks about them. But when they do a bad job, you sure as crap know about it. So I'm giving some credit to CEO Mike Bowers, Philadelphia Eagles offensive line, and saying, I think DeAndre Swift is a bit of a mirage based off what we saw last year.
I mean, DeAndre Swift has been, finally kind of put things together a little bit last year. Still wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination, though. He, was kind of hot for a little bit, had a couple big games, and then kind of went back to being that pumpkin of a running back. And I don't think that, like you said, this situation is going to help him any. I think for me, he ends up being a sell. I think this opens up a new window for him if you have him and you're looking to move off him. I think if I got offered a late first anywhere near 109 for DeAndre Swift, see you later, dude. I feel like I can replace that production with a third round pick investment in somebody like James Conner, as opposed to sticking with DeAndre Swift. So that's something I'd look to do. I am concerned for those two running backs in Herbert and Roshan Johnson. I don't have any shares of them, but I don't love that for them either. You know, it just furthers the timeshare initiative that is going forth in the NFL, and don't love that for them, but you're not selling those guys for nothing either. So
let me ask you something here, Bob.
Go ahead.
If you like DeAndre Swift, why do you not like Tony Pollard? They got the exact same contract. Answer me that. Not you, Bob. I'm not talking to you.
I was going to say.
I don't like I said, the community has been very low on Tony Pollard and very high on DeAndre Swift. Why do you like DeAndre Swift now more than Tony Pollard? They just got the same contract. They're both in a very similar situation, going to incredibly suspect offensive lines with another young running back there with a young quarterback in place. Tell me why you like DeAndre Swift more than you like Tony Pollard. Besides, he's 2 years younger, whatever. Tell me why in the comments, please.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of great reasons. Maybe the better quarterback projection that is Caleb Williams, but you know, that only does so much for the running back, I think, at the end of the day, when the rest of the offense just isn't quite there yet. But either which way, I'm with you. I'd much rather pursue Pollard or keep Pollard versus keep or pursue DeAndre Swift by a long shot. And then let's get to the last running back of our regular run through here. We got some rapid fire running backs to go through at the end. But Austin Ekeler going to the Commanders, kind of a surprise landing spot for him. 2-year deal, $11.43 million, the cheapest running back contract, I think, overall. That wasn't, you know, one of the bigger name running back contracts. That was the cheapest, I should say. Possible cost, recent trades in both one quarterback and Superflex. Seen him still go for a second round pick in 24, 25, and 26, all happening today. Zach, what are you thinking for you? Not for me. I'll tell you what I'm thinking after you tell me what you're thinking. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Aging running back. What does this do for Brian Robinson? I think they can be complementary to each other. I don't think either is shot in the foot with this deal. I think the timeshare is strong in Washington. What do you got for me, Zach?
Well, first of all, if you're an Austin Ekeler owner, I think this is a great fit if you do want to keep him, because I think he replaces the more of the Antonio Gibson role than the Brian Robinson role. And let's not forget Cliff Kingsbury is running that offense there. So there is going to be more passing work there than was last year. Last year, the passing work was it's 3rd and 12 and we need to get a first down, as opposed to let's run a competent offense here. So this is, to me, one of the better fits for Austin. I don't love this by any means. Again, I have zero. Actually, I have one because I just inherited an orphan team that had Austin Ekeler. And I'm stoked about this landing spot because I can recoup some of his fantasy value was dead last year. You can recoup some of that value now. So to me, this is like almost as good as you could get. And I try to move off as soon as possible. I do think he has some fantasy relevancy this year. I don't know about the second year. I don't look at a 2-year contract for running backs as a 2-year contract. This is a 1-year contract, and they'll make a decision next year based off of what they do. To me, the more buzzkill is Chris Rodriguez, who I was kind of like low-key excited about. I scooped up a lot of shares. It was very inexpensive. Sometimes it was fab dollars. I was pretty interested to see how he would complement Brian Robinson if they didn't, but I fully expected them to add someone else. And we'll see. We'll see. You know, Austin Ekeler has been a little banged up the last couple of years. He's been very inefficient on the ground, 3.5 yards per carry last year. I don't expect him to eat into Brian Robinson's carries very much. I do expect him to be more of a presence in the pass-catching game. And, there's a situation where both of them could be on the field. It's Cliff Kingsbury. He runs a little bit more of a pass-happy offense. You know, we'll see. He did say something at the combine, like, hey, look, we're going to make our offense work around the pieces we have, not the pieces we have work around the offense, which is what you want to hear. And this is a piece you bring in if you want to have a little bit more of a safety net for a young quarterback. So I like this move for Austin Ekeler. I like this move for football purposes too. Like for the Commanders, I think this is a pretty solid move for a year. We'll see how it works next year. And like I said earlier, if you're an Austin Ekeler fan, you should be happy because either A, this buys you a year where I think he's still maybe a flex play, maybe a fill-in if B-Rob gets hurt. You know, B-Rob's never been the model of health. He's been hurt the last 2 years. He did get shot in the leg the first year, not his fault. But or this gives you a potential sell window. You got to be realistic with your expectations, though. You're not getting a first-round pick for Austin Ekeler anymore. You know, if you could get 205 for Austin Ekeler, I'd probably pull that.
Yeah.
You know, if you get a mid-second, I'd probably pull that. If I'm a competitive team, a late second doesn't do me much good. I'd probably have a late second and a third. Don't know if you could pull that off, but I think this was as good as you could expect if you had Austin Ekeler on your team. I'm not buying Austin Ekeler, that's for damn sure. But if I was in a competitive window and I had him, I'd probably hold him. So I think we got a lot of good landing spots for these running backs, as a matter of fact, except for DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, it could have been a heck of a lot worse. That is for sure. And we do have the draft ahead of us, but we're, this draft class is suspect. We can all agree on that. For me, Austin Ekeler, this is a seller hold for me. If you are a competitive team in a PPR league that needs a nice little flex spot, I think Austin Ekeler can do that for you. If you are not, your sell window just opened up, bud. This is your time. This is your chance. I think you can move him for, I'm not sure if you can get a mid-second in Superflex, one quarterback probably. Might need a little bit more, or might need to aim for a later pick in a Superflex league. Maybe you get a future third back, though, too. Who knows? I think you kind of play on the values there a little bit and maybe tweak that to get a little bit more value coming back your way. But with that said, we got all the running backs in for now. We'll come back to some more with a rapid fire at the end, like I mentioned. But let's get into some wide receivers. And the first one hasn't even changed the team yet. We got T. Higgins, franchise tagged, has requested a trade. So we're kind of in a limbo here with T. Higgins. We'll see what happens. But possible cost, recent trades I was able to find for T. Higgins. Again, 24 first, 25 first, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zay Flowers, Trey McBride. And I think all of these were actually super flex trades. I don't think I've found any one quarterback for him. So again, don't know the exact spot of the 24 first or the 25. I would assume that 107, 108 range for him. Knowing how much people love T. Higgins, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if it wasn't that range. Obviously, 25 first hasn't been determined yet, but there's probably an idea if it's early, mid, or late. Not that it's justified. But Zach, what are you thinking for T. Higgins here? Buy, sell, hold, avoid? What do you got?
Woo, that's a tough one. I'd like to see where he goes first.
Sure.
I'd like to see where he goes first. I'm imagining that he's going to go somewhere where he will be a wide receiver one and he's going to get paid like it. But it might be a situation that's not super sexy on paper, like a Carolina, right? Carolina's not a super sexy. Carolina just got another second-round pick, by the way, in the Brian Burns trade. They got 2 second-round picks now. So that's a team I would look out for. I think we're like, in our Discord today, I had to kind of temper it. Oh, what if T. Higgins goes to Kansas City? Well, they don't have money. Oh, what if T. Higgins goes to Buffalo? They don't have money either. They just cut 7 players. Kansas City just played Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed. It's not. He's not going to go somewhere where he gets bumped into that tier 1 with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he probably has a very similar value to where he is now in Cincinnati, even though he becomes a wide receiver one. And who knows, maybe that situation improves. Maybe he lands maybe Bryce Young picks things up. Dave Canales had a great year with Baker Mayfield last year. I don't know. I'm just saying I don't expect, even though he will go somewhere he's desired and he will be paid if he is traded, I'm not expecting a super bump in production. And when I say production, like maybe he'll have more points than he did last year, but the points per game, I don't expect it to be a whole lot more than when Joe Burrow was his quarterback, even though Jamar Chase was there. So I don't know. I've just not ever been I don't have many T. Higgins shares. It's cost too much to get. T. Higgins is someone I use now. Like my new T. Higgins is Jordan Addison, right? A good wide receiver, but there's somebody way better in front of them. Had a good quarterback. You know, we could talk about that, the Viking situation later. I just don't have many shares of T. Higgins, so you know I'm not looking to get any right now. I think there are a lot of people that really like T. Higgins, so the cost is a little bit much than I want to pay for what I think is probably wide receiver 2 production. But, you know, he could land in a situation where in another year or so, when there's some development, I'm not expecting him to go somewhere where there's just this booming offense. I'm expecting him to go somewhere where there's a big need, like maybe even the Giants, maybe fill in the blank with a team that really needs a wide receiver but doesn't have a great offense. So for that reason, I want to say avoid. I want to say avoid because I don't like the cost that it takes to acquire T. Higgins. Like, name me some. Can you read off some of those trades again, Bob?
24 first, 25 first, JSN, Zay Flowers, Trey McBride.
Wait, those are like just straight up, like 24.
Yep, those are all straight.
Yeah, see, I need to know where that is. Like, you know, if it's 110, sure. I'll take T. Higgins.
Let's say 108.
That's the cliff, isn't it? That's the cliff. I'd probably take T. Higgins over 108.
Okay.
There's a lot of uncertainty with 108. Like if it was 107, I say no.
Yeah,
107 is where I draw the line for T. Higgins.
Yeah, I think 108, you're basically hoping whatever you draft there, aka Brian Thomas, to probably be T. Higgins. And Correct. It's like, well, we already have T. Higgins. We know what T. Higgins is. We have T. Higgins at home. And I think rolling with that, for me, probably a hold. I don't hate the avoid, especially without knowing where he goes. If he's just going to sign another deal in Cincinnati, although has requested a trade, not usually a great start, although we've seen that happen before where players request trades. And it's like, oh, we just had to pay the guy and he's fine now. He didn't really want to go anywhere anyway. But either which way, probably a hold for me. Not looking to buy. I don't feel overly inclined to go buy T. Higgins as much as I think, and everyone else does, that he could be a wide receiver 1 on another team. I don't think that that's a guarantee just because he can, that he will. And there's also the argument, well, why would he go to a team or why would he be traded to a team why would a team trade for him when they don't need a wide receiver 1, whatever the case is, and pay him all this money? That's another argument. Maybe you find that perfect suitor, who knows, that does want to make him a wide receiver 1. Then we have a different discussion. But for now, I'm holding if I have him and probably avoiding. I don't think he's a screaming buy. I don't think he's a screaming sell at this point. So I'm happy just being content with where I have him. And if I don't have him, he can stay where he is. But with that said, let's move right along to the next one. Michael Pittman Jr. also staying with his assigned team or his drafted team. Re-signed with the Colts, 3 years, $70 million, getting paid. Possible costs, recent trades for Michael Pittman Jr. Kind of a wide range. Let's say we have Rashee Rice, we have Travis Etienne, and we have a 24 first. Let's put that at the 107 today. Because I think Michael Pittman is worth a little bit more than a T. Higgins, or he should be. Zach, I want to hear your thoughts. What are you thinking with Michael Pittman? Buy, sell, hold, avoid. I know you're a Michael Pittman guy.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got for me?
I'm buying, and I bought a couple days ago. I acquired Michael Pittman and Derek Carr for Romeo Doubs and Kenneth Walker.
Nice. That's a good deal.
Yeah, I thought so.
I like that deal a lot.
I needed a QB3. Been trying to get off Walker almost anywhere I can. Not for any reason. Yeah. I think Walker's value is a little bit more inflated than his production gives off, and I don't see that changing with Charbonnet there. So I like Pittman. I think Pittman is very what you see is what you get. I don't see anybody trying to rake you over the coals for Pittman. I know I bought Pittman in our Rewinders League during the season, and that was before the real uptick in the production in the second half of the season. So I'm buying Michael Pittman as long as the cost is relative. And I again, I want to go back to what I saw. I said with the Saquon Barkley deals, I don't see people trying to rake you over the coals for Michael Pittman. So, and that's to me a big deal when trying to buy or sell a player. Like, is somebody trying to get one over on me on this deal, or can I buy at a fair value? And when I say a fair value, when I buy Saquon, I'll probably overpay a little bit. I'm okay with that, but I'm not giving you, the 2-for-1. I'm not giving you $1 for my 50 cents. So, with Michael Pittman owners, I've seen people asking for fair deals. Like I said, Kenneth Walker, Romeo Doubs for Michael Pittman and Derek Carr is probably obsolete in a year or two. I felt good about that deal. So I'm buying Michael Pittman, but I think this offense, showed a lot last year with Shane Steichen, and so did Philly without Shane Steichen, right? Like, holy crap, did they miss him? You know, let's look at that from a two window perspective, where Indianapolis thrived with Shane Steichen and Philadelphia really missed Shane Steichen. And so I think that speaks volumes to the expectations that you feel safe and secure with Michael Pittman's production.
Michael Pittman still feels like a value. Doesn't, like you said, I think it's a great way to put it. Nobody's going to try to really pull one over on you, rake you over the coals, however you want to say it. You know, I don't think anybody's going to really pull too much or try to pull too much for Michael Pittman. I think he's a pretty fair get. I think he's reasonably accessible, not a super sexy player by any means, but he produces. And I think, you know, we saw a nice season from him last year. I think that can continue. I'm pretty close to in on paying the 107 for him, which is one of the suggested deals. I don't love it. I like it more if that 107 is Brock Bowers is what's looking at me there, because I think those two can kind of be close to value-wise in the terms of the grand scheme of things. Maybe they end up pretty close, especially in production-wise and things of that sort. But ultimately, hopefully, maybe get a little bit back. Maybe like give me a third back, like 25 third, just a little something to make me feel better. But with that said, let's move right along. Get into another one of Zach's favorites, another re-sign. Noticing how, oddly enough, a lot of wide receivers re-sign with their teams, quarterbacks as well. That's not true. I'm sorry, wide receivers re-signed with a lot of their teams, and a lot of the tight ends re-signed with a lot of their teams. But the running back and quarterback carousel was in full swing. But we're talking about wide receivers now, Bob. We're talking about Mike Evans re-signing with the Bucs, 2 years, $41 million for this old guy. Possible cost, recent trades, looking again, came through today. Josh Downs for Mike Evans, 25 first for Mike Evans, 24 first for Mike Evans. I'm assuming those are late. And a 24 second. I'm assuming early to mid for that one. So we have a new offensive coordinator. We lost Dave Canales to Carolina, as we mentioned. And, you know, Mike Evans getting up there. Is the cliff finally coming? Zach, buy, sell, hold, avoid. What are you doing with Mike Evans?
I'm surely not buying at a first-round pick. That's for sure.
Either. That's right.
And you know what? You could probably look at that in 10 months and feel dumb about it, right? Because last year he was wide receiver 5. You know, so that's I just right now I don't feel comfortable paying a first-round pick. Like, go down the list of players that are first-round picks that I feel better having over Mike Evans. And even though some of them are inconsequential for a year, you know, maybe Brian Thomas doesn't get off to a booming start. Look, not all these wide receivers are going to hit in year one. I'd still rather have the opportunity at future production than you know, the 1 year or 2 year window that Mike Evans buys me. Now, I was a big Mike Evans guy last year because he was coming off a wide receiver 16 season, and then Baker Mayfield walks in the door, which nobody believed in, so his value was incredibly low. That's not the case anymore. They bring back Baker Mayfield, which, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I'm a big Baker guy because of I just think he's got such a raw deal. But we never look at some of these other things. We never, like, Dave Canales was such a huge deal. It was such a huge deal to Baker's success last year. Of course, so was Mike Evans, though. So was Mike Evans. So, you know, I'm not in at a first round pick. But I'm not selling at a second round pick either. I have him in our Rewinders League, and I have yet to receive one competent offer for a wide receiver that scored almost 300 points last year in our scoring format. So it's kind of that I'm probably holding Mike Evans if I have him. And if you have Mike Evans, unless you picked him up as an orphan team, you're probably on a competitive team, right? Like, who has Mike Evans and is not trying to compete? Like, I'm not even buying Mike Evans as like, hey, I'm over this rebuild. Let me get that. That's not a piece that you buy. You know, because you want more than that 1 year of security. You want a Evan Ingram that we talked about, where we see tight ends playing successfully to the 34, 35. Not Mike Evans, he's already had 10 years under his belt. And I don't know. Like, this is not the Tom Brady Buccaneers. This is the Baker Mayfield Buccaneers, who just got a very Geno Smith-esque contract. I know it's $100 million, but if he doesn't do good after 1 year, there's a solid chance Baker Mayfield's out there again for another team next year. So, Not buying at a first-round pick, not selling at a second-round pick, that makes him a hold for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is a guy you probably ride off into the sunset if you have him on a competitive roster. If you are, maybe you've started to kind of jumpstart a rebuild, over time, and you just haven't had a chance to move Mike Evans. There was this uncertainty where he was going to go. Now he's with a new team. If you can get a mid to early second for him on a rebuilding team, I'm probably happy for it. You might get more in season for him when a team is like trying to push. Maybe you get a 25 first for him then. Maybe that's what you wait for. You hold out for that deal. I'm fine with that too. But like you said, with the whole buying him, there's probably still an argument that Mike Evans is a value. And the thing about these aging wideouts, as they continue to produce and, make us look foolish when we're saying, well, the cliff's coming, and it doesn't. These guys are a value until they're not. And eventually you're going to be buying in, and it's going to be too late. That risk assessment is up to you, not up to me. I'm not buying in at this cost. If I have to pay it first, not about it. A second on a competitive team, maybe. Still don't love it. Definitely not moving Josh Downs for him, though. I can't. I refuse. But with that said, Zach, moving on to another one of your favorite wide receivers, somebody who did change teams. We got Gabe Davis going to the Jaguars on a 3-year deal for $39 million, possible cost / recent trades, a 24 third, a 26 second. Terry McLaurin, there is not a ton of market on him. I'm sure he's moving around, though. Gabe Davis is always kind of a hot topic. As much as he's a scoring hot and cold, so is his value kind of all over the place. Depends on who you're talking to. To me, just some quick thoughts on him. This is more of a Zay Jones replacement than a Calvin Ridley replacement. If anybody out there is thinking that Gabe Davis is going to come in there and be the one, I don't see that happening. With Zay Jones, they could save $7 million with a post June 1 cut and just have $3 million in dead cap by cutting him. And in my opinion, they're still looking for a true alpha in Duval. I don't think that Gabe Davis is the answer. I don't think Christian Kirk is the one. I think Gabe Davis is a really awesome 3 to have, but I think they're still looking for numero uno out there. Zach, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Buying, selling, holding Gabe Davis. Is this just an amazing sell window, or is it anything else? I don't know. What do you got for me?
Well, this is going to be a little awkward. I'm going to put that out there because we're both in the Rewinders League, and you have Gabe Davis.
I do have Gabe Davis.
Earlier today, I went to Gabe Davis and put a little on the heart button for you.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you, would you accept a 3rd-round pick for Gabe Davis?
I don't know, Zach.
No, you would not.
Third.
No, you would not. No. That's ludicrous.
I'd rather just roll with him.
Of course,
honestly, because I think he's fine. A future second, I'd be pretty happy with, but unless it's like 301 this year, I'll just roll with Gabe Davis.
I'm going to give you a very interesting stat. Gabe Davis is so interesting. Such an enigma, an anomaly. It makes no sense how we got here. I'm gonna give you an interesting stat. All right.
Okay.
Since 2020, I'm gonna give you a couple receivers numbers of this, and I want you to guess Gabe Davis. Okay. How many games do you think Gabe Davis had 110 plus yards in a game? I'm gonna give credit to Scott Barrett, who put out this tweet. 110 yards since 2020. Justin Jefferson has 25. Devontae Adams, 22. I want to give you like the ceiling and the floor.
Sure.
Let's go Rob Gronkowski, 3. How many games do you think Gabe Davis had 110 yards since 2020? Lower.
0.
Higher.
2.
Yes. 2 games.
If you give me enough guesses, I'm going to get the answer.
We all know the Gabe Davis story, which, by the way, matches Allen Robinson, Henry Ruggs, Khalif Raymond. We all know the 20 points, the 0 points. This just, to me, I know it's weird saying this, but maybe it was more Josh Allen than it was Gabe Davis. Because to get 0 receptions and zero targets in some games, I'm sure a lot of those 0-point games were 0 target games or 1 target games. So how much of that was Gabe Davis? And I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. I'm just saying I'm intrigued. Like, it's an intriguing landing spot. There's a little bit of security there with Trevor Lawrence. This mumbo, they're not bringing Calvin Ridley back, okay? This mumbo jumbo, like, oh, they're bringing Calvin Ridley back. No, they're not, okay? They're not giving up a 2nd-round pick plus paying Calvin Ridley plus paying Gabe Davis. So this is an interesting landing spot to me. I'm going to give you where I feel safe buying Gabe Davis. And you let me know because there could be a potential trade for. Maybe we could make a trade right here on the show. Maybe potential. Let me go 212 for Gabe Davis.
I would strongly consider it.
I have 212. I have 212.
Do you want to spend your one and only rookie draft pick on Gabe Davis?
I don't know. I have to think about that. Let me get back to you. I'll let you know in the comment section if we made the trade.
Okay, sounds good. I think the biggest thing for me, I think Gabe Davis is probably, as annoying as it is, if you could sell him for a second-round pick, I'm probably doing it. And I'm not. 212 is obviously right on the fringe of being a third-round pick, but like I said, I will strongly consider that offer, Zach. But I think he's probably somebody who might be best used in trying to tier up in a draft. Maybe you get from the late first to up in that 107 range because there's hype around this type of deal. Maybe you're at 112. Maybe you're able to get to 107 or even 108. Maybe that's where Gabe Davis is best spent. On that team specifically, he's like my wide receiver 8. So I don't need him, but I'm happy to have him just as kind of depth if I'm not getting anything great for him. To start 10 league, I think, maybe forgetting that, but either way, I am, I think if anybody's getting really hyped up on this deal, reel it back. It's a better sell window than an opportunity signifying that Gabe Davis is going to be anything different than Gabe Davis has been. Looking at charts like reception perception, not awesome in terms of success rate. 7th percentile against man coverage, 30th percentile against zone, 12th against press. Not good. Per reception perception, go check out Matt Harmon's stuff if you can. Definitely recommend a lot of goodies over there. But
I just want to say one thing to that real quick. And I do love Matt Harmon, by the way. Gabe Davis was never known for getting open.
Sure.
Never. Mm-hmm. Never. Since he came out of college, since he was at UCF, he will catch the ball down the field guy. He's not let's get you throw it in 6, let's throw it to Dave. That's not who he is. It's not who he's ever been. So when you try to put, a square peg in a round hole, it's not going to work. So yeah, he doesn't get open versus man versus, okay, fine. I don't care about that. Because if you throw a 90-yard pass, he can catch it and score a touchdown. So that's the boomer bust of Gabe Davis.
Yeah, for sure. With that said, that wraps up wide receivers for now. We'll be wrapping back around, I guess you could say, to wide receivers in a lightning round or a rapid fire round, whatever you want to call it. But first, we're going to talk some quarterbacks, the biggest one of the day, and the one that, there was riots in the street in Drake London town, just heralding from the rooftops. Drake London breakout season is here. We have Kirk Cousins going to the Falcons on a 4-year deal worth $180 million. Looking at recent trades for Kirk Cousins in Superflex leagues, going for a 24 first, 25 first, 26 first, and Jared Goff straight up, and a 24 second in a 1 quarterback league. Big notes here. I think we're pretty in on Kirk Cousins here. I'm not too concerned about the change in system. He's working in somebody from the same tree as Kevin O'Connell, so I don't foresee too much of a hiccup in the scheme change, quote unquote. But I am curious to know the impact that you believe that there is on Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Is it time to even buy in? Can't even buy in anymore. These guys are expensive now. The buy window that was there has slammed shut. It opened when there was rumors with Arthur Smith leaving. That happened. Then they got a new coach in there and a new offensive coordinator, most importantly. And now the quarterback solution is here. Zach, what are you doing with Kirk Cousins? Tell me about Drake London and Kyle Pitts. How are you buying these guys? Can you buy these guys? Is the buy window slammed shut? All the Drake London truthers out there, we are on board with you now. Everything that needed to happen has happened. The prophecy, as it's been foretold, has been written or whatever. I don't know, something about prophecies. But either way, take it away, Zach.
Yeah, man. I don't know if you can buy any of these guys anymore. Somebody who has a couple of shares of Kirk Cousins, I haven't gotten a good offer yet to sell. I put him on the block in leagues where it doesn't make sense for me to have him anymore. And I've reached out to Kirk Cousins owners in leagues where it makes sense for me to acquire. And this is where part of some of the early anger in the video came from. is just some of the discussions I've had today. Like, we always do this. We always talk about the ceiling, never the floor. I get it. Great. I think Kirk Cousins is still very safe. However, he is coming off a torn Achilles. Mm-hmm. I know, like, everybody. Why are we just like forgetting that? Why are we forgetting that? 36 years old or 35 years old, right? Achilles injury. Why are we forgetting that? And it's not like he hurt. Kirk Cousins didn't hurt his Achilles like scrambling last year. He was just like planting his foot, snap. So, you got to be careful when you're buying Kirk Cousins. And the reason I'm saying those things is not to devalue Kirk Cousins. I just don't think the community's value is anything accurate right now. I think everyone's overreacting to this. I think it's a great fit. I think football-wise, it's going to be really fun to watch the Falcons next year. I do think they add another wide receiver. They don't have a wide receiver 2 there. And I think they got to add somebody else. And so, yeah, I do like Drake London. I do like Kyle Pitts. I do like Bijan Robinson. I'd probably put Kyle Pitts at the bottom of that power ranking list. But I do think they bring in another wide receiver there to take a little bit away, to take a little bit of workload from Drake London and Kyle Pitts and even Bijan Robinson. Let's not forget Tyler Algier is there too. And he was a pretty decent backup running back. I think he gets a little bit of work. So all this to say, I'd like to buy all those players. I'm not buying them at people's exorbitant. There's price gouging. You know what's happening is like there's a hurricane coming. You don't live where hurricanes are about. Let me tell you what happens when a hurricane comes. Okay, hurricane comes and the stores are out of water and toilet paper, and you got some bum at the corner selling it for like triple the price. Well, you know what? I'm not going to buy it just because I don't want to give you triple the price. Like, I'd rather, put some water in a cup and hope for the best, like I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I don't like when people try and price gouge me. And that's what's happening right now with the Atlanta Falcons, skill position players and Kirk Cousins. And I'm not paying these prices. I'm not buying. I'm not buying at these prices. And I'm very happy if I have them already. That's what I'll say. So I'm not buying. I'm not selling. I'm holding if I have.
Yeah, I think everybody can very easily say all these values went up. If you hadn't bought in yet, you probably missed the boat on getting any great value. I think now you're kind of, like you said, getting gouged on what should have been, a late first, maybe plus a third next year. Maybe could have got in on London in a super flex. Now it's a mid first plus a second probably. And that's a lot less appealing. And that second probably has to come from this year too, which is a lot less exciting. You probably don't get anything back on that deal. You are assuming all the risk. And, I think London's going to pop off. I think he's in great shape for this year. I don't think his situation could get any worse at this point. Right. Like, we can't get worse than it's been. So I like to think that we're going to see an upgrade. If you have him, I think it's a great spot to just hold him, chill with it. If you can still get him at a decent ad, if there are people who are still out and suspect about the situation and just kind of want to use this as their opportunity to get off of Drake London, by all means, go buy in. Same deal with Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts is definitely the more affordable of the two, but you do have the consideration of being a tight end, a little higher ranked as a tight end than Drake London is as a wide receiver. So there's probably going to be some value discrepancy there. It might be harder to pull away from whoever has him because the Drake London manager might have 6 other wideouts. The Kyle Pitts manager might only have Kyle Pitts and no other tight end. So it's going to be tough to buy those guys. I think Kyle Pitts probably a later first plus a third. Drake London probably a mid first and a mid second is probably your best case scenario. I wouldn't be surprised to see London Truther selling him back to asking for a mid first and a first next year for the guy because that's what a lot of them paid for him 2 years ago to go get the guy. So shout out to you guys. It's time. Hurricane London coming your way, price gouging and all.
I love that.
Yeah, I try. I come up with this stuff on the fly, and everybody says, get this guy off the mic. But speaking of which, let's move on to Baker Mayfield. You talked about him before, re-signed with the Bucs, 3 years, $100 million, possible cost, recent trades, 25 second, 24 second, and a 25 first, all super flex values there. Did not find any one quarterback trades for him today. At the time that I pulled all this, Baker Mayfield, are you in or out?
I'm out. I'm out on these prices. We actually did have a Baker Mayfield trade go down in our Rewinders League today. Off the news of his today or yesterday, off the news of his contract. Are you not in the league? Hello?
Hello? I forgot, Zach. I think I remember it, but I don't remember the exact.
I know what it was. It was the 202 and then a bunch of trash. Irv Smith and two sixth round picks. Yes, we have a 6th round rookie draft in our league. So
some psycho.
I thought that was a good deal. I thought that because I was having discussions with the Baker Mayfield owner, and I'm just like, he's like, oh, for me it's a late first, and I'm like, nah, like that's a Geno Smith contract. Which, by the way, I was having these conversations for like a month to 6 weeks, and I'm like, he's gonna get a Geno Smith contract. He's gonna get 3 years, $120 million. I literally have the box. I think I put it in the Discord where I said, hey, he's getting $100 million. Lo and behold, he got $100 million. But this is the Geno Smith contract. If Baker does not perform well this year, I haven't seen the language of the contract, but usually these contracts have a little bit of security. And look, we just saw the Denver Broncos eat $85 million, $40 million a year.
Nuts.
So I don't think the Buccaneers would balk if Baker had a bad year. They were 6-11 and they had a top 10 pick and they pick a quarterback next year and they're just like, you know what? We'll just eat it for a year. That's a situation that could happen. I'm not predicting it, but I'm saying that's the inherent risk. What I'm trying to do with these situations is not to value players. I'm trying to make you aware of the risk of when you buy, what could happen. And, you know, I'd probably do a mid-2 plus a player. You know, I'm just thinking of my Rewinder squad, like a Mike Williams maybe. I don't know. I have some other inconsequential players on that list that I try to give like a 2 asset for 1 type of deal. But when I get to a 1st round pick, there's not security in that contract. There's not, like, to me, it's a 1-year deal. Look at the Seahawks this year. They signed Geno to a 3-year deal. And what are we talking about in the offseason? Oh, is Geno there next year? The big news a couple weeks ago was they picked up his $12 million option. So he's going to be on the roster this year. We don't even know if he's going to, they could still trade Geno Smith. Unlikely to happen, but that was the dialogue 2 months ago with Geno Smith. That could very well be the dialogue with Baker Mayfield a year from now. I am rooting for Baker Mayfield. I want him to do progressive commercials again. I want him to shut Colin Cowherd up because that was the most ridiculous take on Baker Mayfield for just doing commercials. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but you got to protect yourself in these situations. And a 1st round pick, I'd rather see where Michael Penix lands, where Bo Nix lands, and go get these guys. You know, there are some quarterback needy teams right now, like Minnesota, who has 13, that still needs a quarterback. The Raiders, even though they signed Minshew, I don't know if he's on your list, maybe rapid fire, but they probably still need a quarterback. So you got to protect yourself with these 1st round picks. I do think the trade that Julian made in that league for 202 was about accurate, but I thought that because it was Julian, he could have gotten more.
And just to correct you really quick, Minnesota has the 11th pick. Las Vegas has the 13th pick. So
there you go.
We just kind of got those mixed up. All good. Just want to get that out there. I'm pretty much with you on this. I think I'm fine holding him if I got him, avoiding him if I don't. I don't think.
Well, I'm selling if I have. By the way, I should have.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what you get if you sell him realistically. If you get 202, I'd be floored. I'd be over the moon about getting the 202 for Baker Mayfield. But probably a hold or avoid for me. I don't really feel the need to go get him. I think he could be had at a value if you're able to get him at that like mid to late 2nd cost, and maybe you get like a future 3rd back or something and kind of just help you get some insurance on that deal. By the way, I want to hear in the comments, is there a better niche out there than insurance commercials? All the insurance commercials are just a freaking riot. I love insurance commercials. I could watch insurance commercials all day long. Please sponsor us. But with that said, you brought this up. Broncos ate a huge contract to move on from Russell Wilson. He goes to the Steelers, gets a 1-year, basically a vet minimum deal, $1.2 million, 1 year. Possible cost, recent trades, a 2nd in Superflex, a 3rd and 1 quarterback. Is the market alive and well on Russell Wilson? Is it time to sell? Is this what do we think about the weapons he has for George Pickens, for Pat Freiermuth, for the running backs? I don't love Russell Wilson in this deal right now. And we don't even know that he's starting. There's supposedly going to be a quarterback competition. I do think Russell Wilson wins that competition. But Zach, buy, sell, hold, avoid real quick on Russell Wilson before we get to rapid fire.
I can't buy. I can't buy just because. I mean, if it's a 3rd round pick, okay. And another situation, I have him in our Rewinders League. I can't sell either. I need a QB3. I need a QB3, and I'm not going to get appropriate value. And I have had some trade discussions, and I've gotten fair deals. And I'm just like, I can't. Like, I need a quarterback 3. And you know me, I don't have a 1st round pick in that league. I barely have a 2nd round pick in that league. So
you might not.
How am I going to buy? Yeah, I might not after today. Who knows? But it's such a tough situation. You probably got to take a little bit of a gamble. I will say this. We had a very healthy discussion about Russell Wilson last night in our Discord. Our Discord is popping. There's so much dialogue, especially around events. But even like the dead seasons, there's still so much happening in the Discord. It's incredible. It's such a fun place to be because you know me, I need something going on, and our Discord always has something going on. Last night we were talking about Russell Wilson, and everyone's like, "Oh man, like starter." I'm like, no. They're literally paying him $1 million. Going to be a competition. I think he wins it, but there's no security. What if they're 1-3? Why not go to Kenny Pickett? And even then, I think that they have the team around Russ to succeed. They have a phenomenal defense, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Buy the running backs, sell the pass catchers. I'm still on that train even more today. You know why? Russell Wilson had I think it was a 27% check down rate behind the line of scrimmage in a
clean pocket.
In a clean pocket, thank you. In a clean pocket, the most since 2005. 502 Crazy. Quarterbacks fit into that criteria, and Russell Wilson was number 1. A lot of that tells me, and look, he had statistically speaking, you just look at the box score of Russell Wilson. His stats last year was pretty good. He wasn't terrible, but it's like I don't see 2019 Russ coming back. So maybe this is good. I think this is probably good for George Pickens, if anything. I think having Russell Wilson there is good for George Pickens. Maybe Pat Freiermuth, but I'm still like, if I can get good deals on Najee Harris and Jalen Warren for 1 year, dude, I feel really good about that with Russell Wilson's check down rate last year. So sure. I'm not buying because I don't want to buy a player that, at least at the cost that it's going to take, and I realize that statement. I realize what I'm saying there. I want to buy low on Russell Wilson. Yeah, of course. But there's a lot of risk when buying a quarterback that's basically on a 1 year deal. If Russell Wilson was on a 1 year, $40 million deal, that'd be a different thing. Now, he's getting $40 million, but 39 of it's coming from Denver. He's only getting 1 from Pittsburgh. So what would stop them from, if they're struggling or if they need a jolt or a spark? And let's not forget, Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator there, which means a lot of running is going to be happening. So even if you're buying Russell Wilson, temper your expectations as to what you're going to get. You're probably going to get a somewhat similar Russell Wilson to what you got last year, which was like, I think it was like in points per game, quarterback 18 or something like that. So I'm not buying. I don't know if I'm selling either. I'm probably holding, because if I have Russell Wilson, it's probably because I need Russell Wilson. So it's probably more of a hold for me.
Thankfully, I have 0 shares of Russell Wilson across my league, so it's an easy avoid for me. I don't have to worry about it. And if I had him, man, and I had other options, like you said, you're kind of almost stuck with him, which is obviously unfortunate. But something else I want to throw out there too. Not super great on Russell Wilson myself, but also something to just keep an eye on. We did hear that Deontay Johnson trade rumors are swirling again, that he might be out on the block or looking or sent to a new home, I guess is the proper verbiage for that. So that's something to keep an eye on. But I still echo what you said too with the pass catchers. Sell or avoid them, buy the running backs, all about buying those running backs. And speaking of which, Zach, we're going to get to our rapid fire session here. We're going to go back to back to back. Again, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends that are just a little less exciting, but they've found new homes or they've re-signed, whatever the case is. I want to hear from you real quick. Rapid fire. Buy, sell, hold, avoid. Quick thoughts. Devin Singletary going to the Giants, 3-year deal, $16.5 million. What are you doing with it, Zach?
I'm avoiding. Yeah, I'm ready to be hurt if Devin Singletary succeeds again, but I don't trust that offensive line. It's terrible.
Yeah. That offense is bad enough to really make me want to strive away. And I can't imagine he gets a full workload anyway. But again, he did okay with that last year. But and has done well throughout his career with not having a good workload. But he's been in much better offenses than I think this Giants offense is projected to be. We'll see what happens. Moving on to the next one, rapid fire. Antonio Gibson going to the Patriots on a 3-year deal, $11.25 million. Zach, buy, sell, hold, avoid Antonio Gibson.
Avoid.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Let me tell you this. There are still Antonio Gibson people out there. Find them.
Find them. Sell them.
Find them.
Yeah, I'm willing to move on and deal with the hurt. If I can get a 3rd-round pick, I'm pretty ecstatic on that. Moving on, rapid fire, buy, sell, hold, avoid. Last running back of the day, Gus Edwards going to the Chargers on a 2-year deal. I don't have the exact dollar amount yet. That hadn't come up by the time we hit record. Zach, Gus Edwards, buy, sell, hold, avoid. What are you doing?
I'm buying this one.
Really? Okay.
Oh man. Okay.
Because of the cheap cost.
Well, yes, but everything that they're doing in San Diego, in Los Angeles, I suck at team names when they change, by the way. I am so bad at that. I hate it. I still call them the St. Louis Rams. The Chargers, everything they're telling you, Bob, is they are turning into a very physical team. They're going to run the ball. I promise you, my one feel super strong about guarantee is the Chargers are drafting an offensive lineman.
Sure.
At wherever they pick in the first round, whether they move back, whether they stay at 5 or wherever it is they are drafting an offensive lineman. Okay.
You're going to disappoint a lot of people that want them to go Neighbors or Odunze there.
But think about it this way. If you're the Chargers, why not just get another wide receiver? Get one in the second round.
Yeah.
Get one in the second round. You get the top offensive lineman at number 5 or 6. That's a steal. The first 4 teams are not going O-line. So if you're the Chargers, you're going to get the pick of the litter at the offensive line. Why would you not do that? I think they signed Will Dissly today. That's a blocking tight end, right? That's a blocking tight end. Look, what is the team telling you by their moves? What are they telling you? We're talking about Mike Williams in trade talks, Keenan Allen in trade talks. They let Gerald Everett go. They let Austin Ekeler go, who's a big pass-catching running back. And they bring in Gus Edwards, who, guess what? Whose offense was Gus Edwards in that's now there in San Diego?
Greg Roman.
Okay. Hello.
I don't remember the first name.
I'm buying, man. Like, what does it take? A 3rd-round pick?
I'd be maybe now it takes a 3rd, but I feel like, I mean, if you send a 3rd, you probably get like a 4th back. I think more.
I don't think you can get for a 4th.
I know. I'm saying you send a 3rd, you get Gus and a 4th back. I think is
you can try. You can
probably
try that. But at the end of the day, if it was like 310, I don't know. I do like the 3rd round this year. We did go over that the other day.
Yes, we did.
Now I'm like, ooh, 3rd round. I really like the 3rd round. Jacob Cowing, baby. I think I would do it just for 1 year on a competitive team. Also, This is a 28-year-old running back, and he's not going to be the RB1. But I think that they draft somebody, and it's a timeshare, or it's 60-40. Rookie running back Gus Edwards. I think that Gus Edwards is going to get work there. And look what he did this year when the RB in front of him was injured. He was a great play this year, a great goal line. He's automatic at the goal line. So everything they're telling you is they're going to be more physical. They're going to run the ball. Every move they've made to their offensive coordinator hire tells you they are going to run the ball. I'm buying Gus Edwards at the price that he costs.
Honestly, if we think they're going to add somebody in the draft, I would wait till they do that to go buy Gus Edwards. Sure. Because I think he'll regulate in value a little bit. If you want to go buy in, I would say.
Here's the thing. I'm not trying to flex right now, but so many people don't know all that information. So many people don't know that Greg Roman is his offensive coordinator. And nobody believes that they're drafting an offensive line. Look at all the mock drafts. Nobody believes that right now. Mm-hmm. So what you could get is somebody putting him on the board with an opportunity to sell. So at least sniff around is all I'm saying. Sure. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense because they have to draft a running back. It's got to be a day 2 running back at minimum. So that makes total sense. But there is a buy window right now. Somebody might just want to be getting him off their roster. So at least just sniff around and check in.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that sentiment. Moving on to wide receivers, we got a couple of few to run through. Your boy, Kendrick Bourne, re-signing with New England, 3 years, $19.5 million. Zach, buy, sell, hold, avoid. Do you want any part of this newly formed-ish New England offense? What do you got for me?
I do. You want to know why? Because I bought Kendrick Bourne the other day. I'm going to read you this deal, and you're just going to laugh. And it was with one of our patron members, K. Wade, which, by the way, love you, K. Wade. As a matter of fact, I brought him into the Discord from one of our leagues. He's such a phenomenal league member. I bought Kendrick Bourne for the 410.
Fine.
Now, this was in February. This was in February. I want to admit that. February 25th. So 2-ish weeks ago. Probably takes a little bit more than that right now. Why not, man? He was having a really good year last year. Mac Jones looked good when he was targeting Kendrick Bourne. That's how good he was last year. I think he'd be better if he was a wide receiver too. And I think that's a realistic possibility with them bringing somebody in there. So for the again, this is the theme of every player I talk about. With the cost that it takes to acquire, my Jahan Dotson point is not that I love Jahan Dotson. It's that the cost to acquire warrants taking the risk on Jahan Dotson. For a 4th-round pick on a guy who flashed last year. But by the way, I'm not super in love with the 4th round in rookie drafts. For as much as I love the 3rd round, when I get to the 4th round, I do our mock drafts every day. I'm like, I don't know who this is. Look, I know you love Ben Sinnott, whatever, Sinnott. Give me a veteran player that, I can potentially flex, or I can flip for a 3rd-round pick next year, especially if it's a late 4th. So maybe you can't get him for a late 4th now, but you can try.
Yeah, no, I'm probably going to avoid and just let that be. I've been on the Kendrick Bourne roller coaster since his days in San Fran, waiting for that to really pop off and show out for an extended period of time. And I'm just good, but I get it. Go do your thing. Go live your life. I'm not gonna suck the joy out of your life or try to take away any of your happiness. But speaking of people who have taken away happiness, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Mims. What are we doing with these two? Jerry Jeudy goes to the Browns. Obviously, a position opens up for Marvin Mims to get some work. We need to see Tim Patrick get an extension or a re-up, whatever you want to call it. Let's talk Jerry Jeudy. Let's talk Marvin Mims before we move on to quarterbacks. Zach, buy, sell, hold, avoid, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Mims. Give me your thoughts.
Nah, I'm out on both. Yeah, I'm not interested. I'm okay with missing the Marvin Mims boat, and I actually have moved off quite a few shares before the Jerry Jeudy trade, and I'm not mad about it now. And I'm putting him on the block in leagues I have him. It probably takes a 2nd-round pick to acquire, and I just rather have one of the rookies. One of the rookies. That's what the decision is. Would I rather have who it's a rookie going late to? Malachi Corley or Marvin Mims. I'd rather have Malachi.
I'd take anybody else on the board. I'm not a Corley guy, but I'll take somebody else on the board in the 2nd round.
But you get what I'm saying. I'm not in all the mock drafts. I don't know where Corley's going. I think it's late 2nd, but you get what I'm saying.
Ish. Yeah. No, I got you. You're probably looking at more like Keon Coleman-ish in that range. You might be looking at a running back in that range, which, not a great running back class, but at that range, it's pretty decent value for what you might be getting. I think, honestly, selling Marvin Mims is probably the move. Jerry Jeudy, I believe I've gotten rid of all my shares, so it's an easy avoid for me again. If I have him, I think this breathes new life into his sellability. Where you were struggling to. Cleveland isn't a sexy landing spot by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just something different. He needs it. He needs a change of scenery. I hope you use this opportunity to get rid of him if you still have him. Avoid him. I'm not looking to buy either of these guys. Looking to sell Mims. Looking to sell Jeudy if I can. See you later. Let's talk quarterbacks. We got 2 really quick to run through. Gardner Minshew, your favorite. 2-year deal. I believe it was 25 million, 25 million. With 15 guaranteed over the 2 years. Go to the Raiders. Sounds like a bridge deal. We agreed on bridge quarterback deal. I mean, Gardner Minshew, you think you're interested in maybe like a 3rd-round pick if you can buy him for a 3rd or late 2nd for something for a backup quarterback, or hell, maybe a starter for a little bit. What do you think?
I have quite a few shares of Gardner Minshew because I had
You're just holding.
Because I had Anthony Richardson shares.
Right. Sure.
And I feel like I have 2 starting quarterbacks today. We had this discussion in our Patreon or in our Discord, which is just so many conversations today in our Discord. It was so fun. And I was so busy. I was like, yeah. It was crazy today. I just had a baby. I'm holding a baby like, okay. Yeah. And I'm on the Discord all day. It was such a fun place to be. I think he's a starting quarterback there. I don't think it's a given. I think it's a competition, but just based off of what I saw last year versus what I saw this year, I look at the guys on the team, right? I look at Jacoby Myers. I look at Devontae Adams. I don't know who's there at running back, but I think those 2 guys, they don't have that youthfulness to wait to try and compete. So they're not Michael Mayer, right? Michael Mayer, second-year player. Devontae Adams is in his 11th, 12th year. Jacoby Myers is a veteran now. He's 27, 28 years old. They want to win. And so they're not trying to develop anybody here. So they're going to let whoever's the best quarterback be the quarterback there. And I think that's Gardner Minshew. Just look, Gardner Minshew almost took the Colts to the playoffs last year without Jonathan Taylor. So I think that it is competition. I think Gardner Minshew is the quarterback there. There's no security in that whatsoever. They could draft someone in the first round. I have no insight into that. But just based off of what the team told me today, I view that as a 1-year contract. They're giving him $15 million guaranteed. That to me is a bridge quarterback to get them through this year. I think he's a starter. Can I buy? I probably am not paying a 2nd-round pick because of the risk. Because of the risk of they can bring somebody else in. They can go to O'Connell at any point. Just my gut feeling says he's a starting quarterback, and I would, move a 3rd, or I'd move an inconsequential player that somebody else may be interested in. For lack of a better, like Roshan Johnson right now. I don't know how much value he has, but I think that Minshew is the starting quarterback next year. I was pretty firm on that in the Discord today.
Yeah, I think they could very easily draft somebody in the first round and sit behind Minshew for a little bit, eventually take over. I think any of these rookie quarterbacks, as much as I even don't, at least the top 6 or so, as much as I don't love Penix, I think he would take over at some point. I think he is just a better quarterback overall than Minshew at this point. I think Minshew is solid, but I think Penix is about good enough to start in this league at the end of the day. I think I'm holding if I have Minshew. I think I'm pretty happy with what I have going on in that situation. I don't think you're getting anything great for selling him. And I think if you are, interested in buying, I would really want to wait until we see the draft. Yes, you're risking if they do nothing and Gardner Minshew's just the guy, which could happen. I'd be pretty surprised to see them not address quarterback at all, though. But with that said, let's move on, run through tight ends really quickly. Noah Fant re-signed with the Seahawks, 2 years, $21 million, buy, sell, hold, avoid, the 4th receiving option on this offense with a competent running backs as well. What do you think for Noah Fant?
I'm so bummed about this one. I was very excited about. I'm pretty bummed out about a lot of the tight ends, as a matter of fact. There's just some juicy landing spots for tight ends. I think like Jonnu Smith to Miami is like the best free agent signing right now for the tight end position. I was really trying to buy Noah Fant in quite a few spots for low, like late 3rd, player here, player there, throw him in deals. I probably bought 2 or 3 shares of Noah Fant over the last 2 or 3 months. And he was somebody that I was looking at as, hey, this guy's got some juice, still young, not a lot of tread on the tires in terms of, catching passes and getting taken out the knees and so on and so forth. Here's what I'll say about this. Yes, he's 3rd or 4th in the food chain there in terms of pass catchers in Seattle. They just lost their other 2 tight ends. And they're kind of shifting that offensive philosophy. So I'm still intrigued. I'm still curious. And if I can buy a tight end that was a 1st-round pick that can still outperform the price that it takes to buy at, I'm still in. But this landing spot sucks. I was not happy about it. I was really looking forward to see where he goes. There's a lot of teams that needed tight end. A couple of weeks ago, it was the Texans. It was Cincinnati. There's a bunch of, the Jets need a tight end. And he went back to Seattle. Like, oh, come on, man. But like I said, their other 2 tight ends moved on. They're shifting offensive philosophies. Not totally out, but I don't love this landing spot for Fant whatsoever.
I am with you. I will easily say I'm avoiding. I just think it's, with how much I'm expecting JSN to get, Tyler Lockett to still be involved, DK Metcalf to still be the big brother alpha to that room, more than likely. I'm good. Moving on to Dalton Schultz, re-signed with the Texans, 3 years, $36 million. This one happened a little bit ago. This wasn't, today, but hey, we should talk about him, get him in there, get some love for him. Buy, sell, hold, avoid Dalton Schultz, CJ Stroud's current #1 tight end. What are you thinking?
Ooh, I love this. Very happy. Took quite a few risks the last few weeks, buying Dalton Schultz or holding Dalton Schultz with the belief that he would sign, which, by the way, I'm so happy for him. Dude got screwed by the market last year. Had to bet on himself. And look, when Dalton Schultz signed with the Texans last year, you're like, oh, God. Oh, man. And this was not the CJ Stroud Texans that he signed with.
Mm-hmm.
This was the Davis Mills Texans last year. And you're like, oh, dude, you just went from Dak Prescott to Houston? Yikes. And it really worked out for him. So super happy for him. Love the landing spot. I'd be buying at an appropriate price, which is, probably like a mid-second, depending on the premium of your leagues. In our Rewinders League, it's 2 point per receptions for tight ends. So probably would take a little bit more than a mid-second. But yeah, I like Schultz. I like he's got security there. He's there for at least 2 years, if not the full length of that contract. And they don't have to pay CJ Stroud for the next 4 years. They don't have to pay Will Anderson for the next 4 years. So they can afford to pay the guys that earned it, like Dalton Schultz. So very happy for Schultz. And I'm buying him as I like to have Dalton Schultz as my second tight end in my league.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. Speaking of other tight end, I will also take me some Dalton Schultz. I don't have any, so I'd have to buy him. Can't hold him. But yeah, I don't hate the cost. I think he's a pretty affordable tight end too. But moving along, let's talk about Hunter Henry, re-signed with New England, 3 years, $27 million. Do we want a piece of this steaming hot, sexy offense, Zach? Or is this another avoid for us?
Oh, it's like just make me vomit and then swallow it back down, right? This is awful. Like,
yeah.
Oh, but my question to Hunter Henry is why? And I guess it's because of the market.
Sure.
Right? Like, why?
Sure.
Why go back to New England? Don't you want to win?
I mean, decent enough money for what it's worth. Gets to stay put. Maybe a little insane, that whole definition of insanity, expecting a different outcome, but producing the same actions to get to that outcome.
You know who he feels like now? Because Hunter Henry used to have like a very high ceiling, and rightly so. He was in where was he? The Chargers, right?
LA. Yeah.
He feels like Dawson Knox to me. Like,
that's a good pull.
He feels like Dawson Knox to me, where you could get tight end 5, you could get tight end 20. No clue. No clue.
Fair enough. Yeah, easy avoid for me. Moving on to a guy you just touched on, Jonnu Smith, going to your Dolphins. 2 years, $10 million. Pretty cheap deal. Kind of a prove it deal, it feels like. But what do you think about this one, Zach? What are your thoughts? Buying, selling, holding, avoiding?
I like it. And again, I'm buying Jonnu Smith as my second or even third tight end. Do not depend on him the way the Dolphins use tight ends, at least the last few years. And I think that was more of a product of them not having a tight end that fit their system, that could both catch passes and block for the run game. They've not had that in the 2 years that Mike McDaniel's been here. Gesicki could catch passes, couldn't block. They didn't want him on the field. Durham Smythe, he could catch some passes, but not to the level that you want from a fantasy tight end. So I like this. I really like Jonnu Smith if you can get him for a third-round pick. And I look, they're not – the Dolphins have 2 picks in the first 5 rounds. They're not going to draft a tight end this year. They have so many holes after what happened on day 1 of free agency that they actually potentially even need to trade back and plug in some of those holes. So I think he's very secure there for at least a year, if not the length of that 2-year contract. Maybe they bring in someone else next year. Just with next year, they're going to have to extend potentially Tua, Waddle, Javon Holland. There's somebody else that I'm missing that they'd have to extend. So I just don't see them spending any kind of big money on a tight end. So I think I feel like Jonnu Smith is safe there as the starting and leading pass catching tight end for the Miami Dolphins, which is a potential high ceiling. Like maybe he takes a little bit of workload away from Tyreek Hill, and they need that. Like their offense needs that. They were too dependent on Tyreek Hill last year. So if I can buy for like a mid to late third or another player that you just want to move off of, and maybe somebody wants to move off Jonnu Smith because they don't see the ceiling there, I do that. I'm not paying anything more than that. I'm not paying a second round pick. There's just too much unknown about that situation.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think he's probably an avoid for me, but I don't hate the idea of buying, especially if it's a late third, future late third projected, and you need some tight end depth. I don't hate it.
That's what it is. I'm buying as a depth play. Can I get a bye week fill in? Can I get an injury fill in? He'd be my third tight end. I'd like a tight end room of TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Schultz, and Jonnu Smith. That'd be my ideal tight end room right now.
Yeah, I think that your best case with him, or probably best process, would be to, if you're working in an existing deal and you just need a little bit more, try to pull Jonnu Smith from whoever you're dealing with. I think that's probably the best way to go and get him. Just get him as a throw-in, and I think that'd be the way I'd be most happiest. We just had news drop. So we had two things happen. We had one, Joe Mixon was cut, released from the Bengals, and then the Bengals filled that gap nice and quick. They added Zack Moss on a 2-year, $8 million deal. So quick, buy, sell, hold, avoid, rapid fire on Zack Moss. To Zach, what do you think about your namesake here?
Wow. Interesting, man, how that just played out simultaneously while we were recording. I mean, I'd buy Zack Moss as a flyer. I'd buy Zack Moss if I had Chase Brown. I'm not buying Zack Moss as a singular acquisition. And if anything, I like, again, we talk about perspective. Chase Brown, a lot of people like, oh, this is Chase Brown's running back. I'm like, no, they're going to bring somebody in. Come on. They're going to bring in a vet. They're going to bring in another rookie. It's going to be a timeshare. I really liked what I saw to Chase Brown last year, but he's a little bit on the smaller side, can get hurt, stuff like that. He was hurt a lot last year. So I actually like this running back room of Zack Moss and Chase Brown. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is a good 1A, 1B. I think Chase Brown is going to be able to take a lot of the change of pace stuff, a little faster paced downs and receiving work. I think Zack Moss can contribute to that a little bit, but I think mostly Zack Moss is going to be a nice little banger for the most part and keep this offense chugging along. I think this is a nice two-headed monster, but let's get into some of the last remaining notable free agents, rapid fire. What are we doing with these guys that are just sitting out there still, have not at this time found a new home? First and foremost, Aaron Jones, buy, sell, hold, avoid. What do you think here?
What is the cost to buy?
I'm going to say it's a mid-second round pick for Aaron Jones.
No,
really?
No.
Not even a consideration?
No.
Okay.
I think he can be very productive when he plays. He could pull a hamstring and be out for 8 weeks like he was last year. So
sure. Fair enough. I can get behind that. Let's talk Joe Mixon, new free agent, and this is kind of a raw deal for Joe Mixon, if you ask me, getting kicked to the curb once a lot of the spots have already kind of been filled up. Is what it is, I guess. But what do you think of Joe Mixon? Buy, sell, hold, avoid. Probably doesn't cost you more than a late second, early third at this point. I can't imagine anybody asking for more than that. Still not about it?
No. Just I didn't even think about that, by the way. That's a great point by you. Like, rip Joe Mixon.
Yeah, it's just rough. Yeah,
probably gonna have to wait for it, like to get the opportunity he wants, because he was decent last year.
Yeah, he's probably. I would guess he's probably somebody that maybe latches on sooner rather than later, but feels like one of those that will probably sit through practice squad, maybe even, and wait for a really good deal. Wait till after the draft. Wait till there's an injury. Who knows? It could be that bad for Mixon with all these spots already being kind of filled up. Who knows? Rough go for Mixon, but I'm kind of with you, kind of willing to avoid, all these running backs that still don't have homes. There could be some reason to that. The NFL might be telling us something that, hey, these guys aren't awesome. I know, some of them got released today, so I guess we can't give them too much can't knock them too much. Aaron Jones specifically is one I'm still pretty interested in at a mid-second for a competitive team. I don't hate the cost of maybe a 25-second. Pretty in on that cost as well. I'm definitely thinking about it. I think he still has some juice in the tank. I was sad to see the Packers let him go. But moving on and not backtracking anymore, Derrick Henry, another guy who's sitting out in the wind currently, has been linked to the Baltimore Ravens, which I think would be pretty interesting to see. Buy, sell, hold, avoid, not knowing that as of this moment of this recording. Buy, sell, avoid Derrick Henry. I think you're looking at another late second, early third. I can't imagine anybody asking for more than that at this point for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I think I'd be in on that on a very competitive roster. He's got to land somewhere. He's too good. Yeah. He's too good to be Joe Mixon, you know.
Yeah.
And I like knowing, put yourself in his shoes. Why would you go to give me a bad team? I want to say Jacksonville. Why would you go to the Jets? Right? Why would and not because Breece Hall's there, but because it wasn't a good team last year. Why would you go to New England? No, you'd go somewhere that you have a chance to win. So, and I don't even know if that puts him as like the RB1 there, but I'd buy at a respectable cost, and maybe that's a late second, early third plus. But I think I'm not totally out on Derrick Henry just yet.
Sure, I'm with you. Marquise Brown. What do you think for this one? Buy, sell, hold, avoid. Marquise Brown's still chilling out there. What do you think?
That's an interesting one, right? That's not somebody I expected after day one to still be not signed to a team. Or you're hearing nothing. You're hearing nothing about Marquise. Very quiet. And that's a product, I think, of what's going on with the NFL draft, where you have just so many viable rookie wide receivers. I don't really want to touch Marquise Brown right now. I want to see where he lands. I think Marquise Brown is probably last year's Dalton Schultz. Got to go somewhere on a one-year deal.
Sure.
Show me you can do it, and hope that next year's wide receiver class is not as good. Remember, last year's tight end class was really good too. And so that led to Schultz and Gesicki and a couple other tight ends not getting very much money because there was Laporta, there was Kincaid, there was Musgrave, there was a couple other guys who got drafted in the second round, Schoonmaker, you know? So I think that's what's happening with Marquise Brown right now, and I think he's going to have to go somewhere on a one-year, maybe two-year deal with the second year being a team option and prove himself to be the value that we've thought of Marquise Brown having to be prior to his struggles this year in Arizona.
Yeah, I think this is a big old avoid for me as well. I don't really see at this point a landing spot being good enough where it really shifts his value unless, Nate, or not Nate, I'm sorry, unless Zach, we see Kansas City get thrown out there, but I don't think they have the money to bring him on. Same with Buffalo, like you mentioned before. Realistically speaking, there's not a lot of space for Marquise Brown out there right now for teams that want to take a shot. I think, like you said, you nailed it. We're probably waiting on a prove it deal of sorts after not signing day one. And I think we could say that about our last wide receiver as well. Calvin Ridley, another guy who I haven't heard anything on. I don't know if you have. I don't know if you, the viewer, has heard anything on Calvin Ridley, but very quiet right now. Nothing going on. We don't expect him back with the Jaguars. They'd have to give up a pick. I know there is some loophole where they wouldn't have to give up a pick if they did re-sign him, but I'm not going to get into that because I don't remember it for starters. But whatever the case is, I don't think he's back there. I think they've kind of moved on. I think they're looking to go in a younger direction. Either way, Zach, Calvin Ridley, are you still in the same boat, just avoiding outright at this point?
I have 0 Calvin Ridley shares. I have been avoiding for...
You've been steadfast on that for
quite a while.
Yeah,
quite a while.
On brand, if nothing else. I'll avoid him as well. I have him, I think, in 1 or 2 leagues. And I'm just going to hold right out the storm. You can't really do it. You can't sell him right now because you're not getting anything for him. I'd be shocked if you were, I guess. But and I can't say I'm really in on the buy right now. Was not very efficient last year. Could be a product of Trevor Lawrence, not himself. But either which way, I'm definitely going to sit and avoid Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, there's one thing, and there's one player I can keep an eye on. Darnell Mooney. I'm very interested in where Darnell Mooney goes. I'm going to classify him in the same group that I've had Jahan Dotson and Noah Fant in the last few weeks, and even Chase Brown. Those are like the 4 players I've really been hyper targeting in certain leagues, depending on my needs. Very interested where Darnell Mooney lands. Who knows when this drops, if Darnell Mooney has landed somewhere. But I think that there's a team out there that we're not hearing about yet that is interested in Darnell Mooney. Not as a wide receiver 1, maybe a wide receiver 2, possibly a wide receiver 3. I'm very interested if I'm hearing Darnell Mooney to the Chiefs. But I think that he's going to land somewhere, probably another 1-year deal. Prove it to me. I bought Darnell Mooney for the 4.10 in a league yesterday. So why not?
Yeah, I'm I'm less enthused. I've been hurt by him enough. And at the end of the day, maybe he ends up a depth piece. And at that cost, I guess, if you end up with a depth piece, great. But I'm going to avoid.
Would you really rather have a late fourth than Darnell Mooney? Come on. It's a dart throw.
I'll take the reroll.
Okay. All right. I'm somebody who hasn't. I'm not a scorned Darnell Mooney lover. So
yeah, I'm scorned. So
you are.
Nothing worse than lovers scorned. And even I'm good. I'll pass. But with that said, we got into a ton of players and discussions today, and we got into even more in the Discord, Zach. We were in there all day chiming it up about all of these great, new, interesting, not as awesome landing spots that ended up in free agency. That was. We want to know your thoughts on free agent landing spots as well. What are some of your questions that you have? And are you buying, selling, holding some of these players, whatever the case may be? We want to hear about it in the comments, as well as our Dynasty Rewind Patreon Discord, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get in that Discord server for a free 7 days. Don't miss out on the rest of free agency. You can see how popping it is with the rest of this free agency week ahead of us. And hey, stick around for the draft season and all of that good stuff as well. Check out some bonus podcasts while you're there. With all that said, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. As I mentioned, comment below. But with that said, Zach and I are going to get the heck on out of here. We will see you in the next one. But until then, I hope that y'all have a good one.